Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it's my mission and my pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you as well as giving you takeaways to make your creative journey a little bit easier. Now, before I get into things, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various episodes and lessons that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly means a lot to me. So, if you've been following me, especially in terms of this series particularly, you'll know that this weekend was a big weekend. We filmed the proof of concept for what I am hoping will turn into my second feature film called In Search of Sunrise. And a proof of concept, if you're unfamiliar, is basically, sometimes some people do a trailer type of thing. I decided to do a 3-minute section from the full-length script of the feature that showcases what the movie's about, that you can then use to pitch to other people. So that way you can get the full funding and so forth, so they get an idea of like, oh, okay, this is what it is. I get a sense of the tone, the feel, the sense of quality that the filmmakers themselves can bring. And yeah, and then it turns into, in the ideal, the full feature, right? So that's what we filmed this weekend. And I say we because it was me and various actors. So Candace Cruz, Kristen McLaughlin, Lucia Tarantino, Daryl Kristen, and Grace DeMarco. Those were the actors involved in the filming. And the way we did it was I literally gutted my entire apartment. So what you see behind me, that was basically gone. And, I moved everything into my bedroom, and myself and Khalil Abdelrahim, we put up green screen everywhere. So we had cloth green screen that I ran the painter's poles from Home Depot through, because something like a shower curtain is only generally about 8 feet, and I needed something that was beyond 10 feet. And so I got these thick, sturdy extendable painter's poles from Home Depot, 3 of them, because I had 3 green screens that were 10 feet by 20 feet. And so we made basically like an L of that in the apartment, and we did that. Then we lit it, and yeah, that's kind of how we set it up. Now, what was crazy, so Khalil was supposed to come over at 4 p.m. on the Friday. We were going to shoot Saturday and Sunday. So Friday he was supposed to come over at 4 p.m. to help me set up this and all that. He got stuck with work and things of that nature. So I started myself at 4 p.m. and whatnot. And, through no fault of his own, I don't know, because it already felt like such a singular, lone journey, that as time continued and he was, stuck doing work, it was like 6 o'clock, then 7 o'clock, and, slowly it turned like into 8:30 by the time he arrived, maybe even after that. But yeah, it's just kind of doubt and things of that nature creep in, and doing, setting up something to that magnitude by yourself was a lot. I'm not gonna lie. So when he did come, it was a welcome breath of fresh air. He helped me set up the lights and things like that. And I've told this to him in that sense, like, as it's close to like midnight when we're finishing up and getting these things, and we were doing these tests. And by test, meaning we filmed something and we throw it into Premiere and have him try to green key it out, so he can put in a different background. And it just wasn't working for him. Now, he can do it better than I can. And the fact that it wasn't working for him was somewhat scary. Now, we were doing it within Premiere, which is a lesson of itself. Kind of quick spoiler in terms of where I'm going, but after Premiere is not necessarily the best for this thing. Usually, After Effects, you're going to get a far greater result in After Effects. Premiere is great for green screen, for smaller stuff. That's not as specific as what we were doing. So, for example, a lot of the old lessons that I used to do, I did it in front of a green screen and had kind of a bluish background instead of the background you see right now, which is obviously a physical one. But anyway, so it was just getting to a point that it was a little bit frustrating. And, I said, okay, listen, you've done what you could. And, at the end of the day, it's a proof of concept. And so, part of it is proving to ourselves that we can do it and whatnot. So I said, you've done what you needed to do. Why don't you go home? It's late, and he still had his own work to do. And I texted my friend Jonathan Moulton, and I knew it was late, but I was like, hey, are you up? And so him and I actually talked. I jumped on the phone, and I said, obviously in better circumstances, we would have done this earlier. In an ideal circumstance, I would have had this set up Thursday, at the very latest, going into Saturday. But as a lot of people know, and I'm sure you're probably in the same boat, you're just not really afforded that luxury. I couldn't necessarily gut my apartment. The way it worked, like I literally pretty much blocked off the entrance to my apartment, because doing it that way was what provided most space. And so the way to enter in and out, literally, you had to kind of squeeze in through the doorway. And part of being able to even set this up, I had to, one of my friends took care of Chloe, my dog, and things like that. So, there's a lot that for me went into it, and yeah, it would have been far easier to just rent a green screen space that had the space, but, normally those have minimums of 8, maybe 10 hours. And let's say average cost is $90, that adds up. And my whole thing with this was to try to do it on the smallest budget possible, just to prove that it could be done in terms of even with the grandness of the vision that I had. But yeah, certainly at midnight, heading into the most ambitious film shoot I've ever done, feeling sort of down, not a great place to be. But I did speak with Jonathan, and he was like, okay, let me take a look at it. And he did, and he was able to actually knock it out really quickly. He said, minor, very minor spill issues. But for what we're going for, it actually is okay, because we have a way around that. Because ultimately, we're not doing, the end all of it is not a live action movie. It's actually a rotoscope animation, where you film something in live action, but then it gets, masked over with this animation style. And we have a kind of technique that we've been working on to get there. And so, when he did the thing, and by the way, the minor imperfections, I couldn't even tell, right? To be honest with you. I was like the fact that he did it, and he did it so quick, I was like, listen, we're good. This makes me feel a lot better heading into it. So, thank you so much. And that's kind of, one of the things that I thought about is this idea that certainly any victory that I claim, in talking about this story, in talking about this weekend, is not really my own. I stand on the shoulders of so many people that went ahead of me. It's like the story of the 4-minute mile. The 4-minute mile was, of course, impossible until when? Well, someone proved that you could do a 4-minute mile. And then once that was proven, people started doing a 4-minute mile. And even so, the idea is everything's impossible until someone shows that it's possible. And so I knew what I was doing was not impossible. It's a little strange and different, and certainly kind of taken to a little bit of extreme, but it's all utilizing techniques of other people and building upon them, if anything, but not even building it. Mostly it's just combining, you know, two different techniques into a new one. So both of which I knew were possible. And so for me, that's how I approach sort of anything I really do, to be able to create what I create. And so, yeah, certainly it was a sigh of relief knowing from Jonathan that, like, okay, I wasn't that crazy and for flipping my apartment into a green screen space. But one thing, as Khalil left, one of the things we talked about, you know, it would be better if there was more light. So I was like, okay. One of the fail-safes I always knew in my mind was that Home Depot opens up at 6 in the morning. We were going to start filming on Saturday at 9 a.m. So not a lot of time, but I knew, okay, if I get my ass up at 5:30 and I haul ass to Home Depot, be right when it opens, you know, I can get what I need, just in case. And so in that sense, once I knew it worked, but, you know, through everything, that it would be better if there was more lighting, I was like, okay, I'll go to Home Depot on Saturday, and that's what I'll do. So I went to Home Depot and got a bunch of various lights, you know, everything was daylight, right? But I got, meaning the daylight color temperature of the lights. But I got those, I mean, I literally got like $600 and something worth of just lighting material. Clamshell lights, LEDs, you know, single panel, 4-panel, all that kind of stuff. And I added it to my set, and yeah, it was very blinding in a lot of ways, but we made it work, or at least in that sense, I made it work in that moment, because, you know, at that point it was just me. So yeah, and, you know, certainly when you're, you know, you're just kind of counting down the time before that 9 a.m. deadline, knowing that you also have other stuff to make sure is ready, not just the lighting. So, you know, definitely a lot of nerves involved there, and, you know, I didn't want anyone showing up too nervous energy, you know. So I wanted to have everything done even like 20 minutes ahead of time, just so that way, again, when they show up, there's a sense of calmness. And luckily, I was able to get it all done. You know, I didn't have to like rush. There was a sense of hurry, but there wasn't like rushing around like a madman. So I did that, and then yeah, we started filming. So for the most part, so I did all solo stuff initially, and then at around like 2 p.m., people started trickling in that we were swapping out for any of the interacting scenes. And we did it, you know, we did it very quick. One of the things in terms of the way I film is that it's very efficient. The downside is, you know, you don't always get to kind of have the laughter and camaraderie that sometimes can come with having that downtime. And in some sense, it almost feels anticlimactic, because, you know, I'm only getting what I want. And so it almost feels like at times of like, okay, that's it? That was almost too easy, really? That's it? And it's like, yeah, you know, and then, you know, when you have everything planned out, you don't need to overdo it. You know what you need, and you know when you have it, because you've already thought of it. So that's kind of how it was, you know. And whenever people would come, like the biggest thing, because it was a green screen space, and, you know, I mean, there's nothing to play off of, right? A lot of emphasis was spent on the rehearsals to make people acclimated to the spatial relation of, quote unquote, the set, and, you know, how they should be reacting and so forth. And that was key, because I needed them to get in that groove, and they did, which was great. And luckily for me, I thought I would have to have the camera set up at 2 different positions, meaning I would have to move the camera, but luckily I was able to keep the camera in one spot, which was great, in terms of, because I didn't have to redo lighting or anything like that. Like, it was good in that sense. The problem becomes, instead of moving the camera, you have to move the actors. So, if you have 2 actors facing each other, and you imagine the scene how it is, you basically almost like, you have to think of them like everything kind of rotates. And sometimes it's just a straight 90 degree or 180 type of rotation. But the interesting part becomes when it's like, okay, you move them to a 45 degree angle or a 60 degree angle or some random like 55 degree angle, right? Because you need those sort of angles to be able to film in that way. And, certainly that sort of upkeep of making sure that you have eye lines, perspectives, everything. It's all geometrical computations, and your brain does start to go a little bit. It's a lot. And by design, I didn't have anybody to help me on the production end, simply because space, right? The space was limited. B, due to COVID concerns, the less people involved, this, not that it's without risk, but it was safer, right? And so, it was me doing camera, playing off-screen lines for the actors, at times, giving cues, doing the audio, manning the camera. It gets to be a lot, right? One day I look forward to the luxury. I don't have to do all those things. But nonetheless, you're still able to get a product, and that's why for me the rehearsals are key, because if I get them to the actors to a place that they can hit those things and know what I'm looking for, certainly I'm paying attention, but I'm bound to miss some things. So there's a faith that goes with knowing that they delivered, and part of it, part of it's listening, right? Sometimes I can know if someone nailed the performance if they delivered the lines in a certain way, and then other times you're looking for the facial reactions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still a leap of faith, and look, I don't know, for better or worse. I think for better, it's a leap I'm willing to take, and trust that those people can deliver, and I love that, because I do trust them. And yeah, so it was the day went smoothly. I mean, there's problem solving, but we didn't face any major issues. It was raining, but luckily it didn't pick up in the audio recordings, things of that nature, so that was good. And honestly, the big thing towards the end was we wrapped by 7 p.m. and I was able to break down the set pretty quickly, and my friend Daryl actually stayed and really helped me, which was fantastic, because I thought I'd have to do it all by myself. And just the feeling that I was going to have my place back to pretty much its normal condition that same night, honestly did lift a big weight, and so that same, we kind of packed things up and whatever else, and I looked at the time, I'm like, okay, Home Depot doesn't close until 10 p.m. I can return this stuff today too, and what a good feeling that would be to not have to do it tomorrow. And so in the moment it sucks, because I'll be honest, I was already fatigued as it was by 7 p.m. or by 6 p.m. when I was filming with Daryl, because mentally I've just, it's just such a different thing from the everyday, right? And B, because of the pandemic and quarantine, anything that it's a lot, I mean, I feel like we're much more susceptible to fatigue just because of the conditions. Like, even though I imagine most of us are at home and things like that, and we're not really doing much, I don't know. And even if we're doing okay and we're not necessarily, like all things considered, like I definitely am doing fine. Certainly I have a job and I'm able to support myself in that way, which obviously there's people who can't, and quite a significant number. Nonetheless, you do feel that weight, and so it does drain you. And I feel it. And so, and it was something that even though we didn't get a lot of in between time, it was something that the actors and I did kind of talk about there's this, it's exciting, but even as short as it was, like imagine doing a full feature where you're going kind of pretty much like, 3, maybe 4 weeks straight of this. Like this was even not even a full day, and it was relatively taxing, but it was, and so, I mean, in that sense, there's one of the things that I think about often is now the duality of life. This whole weekend was very exciting, but it was also very draining. And I'll expand upon that in a moment, but let me just kind of give the facts, as it were, sort of. So going back to the idea that we struck everything, I returned stuff to Home Depot, and then that was a good feeling. The next day, all we had to really film was a scene at a beach. So we went to El Matador and we went at 11. It was a quick shot or two. And, going into it, I was nervous for a couple of things. That weekend, all the forecasts said it was going to rain. Now, all the forecasts also said it's not going to rain on Sunday, but nonetheless, it meant it was going to be a lot colder. Like, ironically, the weekend before was like 90 degrees pretty much. And I was like, damn, those are the types of moments when the world doesn't necessarily revolve around you, because if it did, then it would have, we would have had that same weather this weekend. So that, but it actually worked out just fine. And, maybe although the world doesn't revolve around me, it does provide in the ways that I needed to, meaning on Sunday, it ended up being a very beautiful day. It wasn't the warmest day, but it was, it was warm enough. And so we went. The water, it was chilly, but it wasn't freezing. And so we were able to do it. And yeah, there was no complaints. They enjoyed, they had to get in the water, and they pulled it off. It was fun. At least that's the impression and what they told me. So, and it was kind of cool, after we filmed that, I was like, that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Again, kind of semi-anticlimactic in that sense, but, we all just kind of relaxed on the beach just a little bit since we were there. And for those of you unaware, like El Matador is a beautiful beach in Malibu. So I was like, you know what, like everyone paid for parking, so might as well just utilize that time, just for a little bit at least. And so we did. We chatted, and it was good. One of the things so now kind of transitioning, when I talk about like the duality of things, I wanted this weekend to be as special as it could be. Especially since this was like a time most of us have not seen other people really, apart from maybe like one or two, in a long time. And so I wanted to honor that. And so I got everyone, I wrote everyone a card and got them some stuff, just to kind of make the moment feel special. And certainly when I look back on it, it was special to me, but again, the weirdness is then, you have to kind of wake up the next day and you're back to quote unquote everyday pandemic life. And if I'm being honest, it's almost worse than any hangover I can imagine. I don't know, when you do something so special and whatever else, and again, the way I film, it tends to be quick. And so it's, there's a sense of withdrawal. I'm not gonna lie. One and done. But luckily, someone suggested like, hey, we should do a Zoom wrap party. So we're gonna try to do that and just kind of at least reflect on the moment. But yeah, I mean, listen, I guess if anything, this weekend I felt the vitality of life in its fullest. Like this is, these are the moments you live for, and yeah, this weekend was a leap of faith on so many different levels, including the idea that COVID is still a thing, and so obviously there was risk involved. We were as safe as we could make it. Everyone got tested and whatever else, but just that in and of itself was a leap of faith, let alone, in terms of the scope of the ambition of the project, and everything else. And, I think if there's a lesson to be gained from that is, as I said earlier, even though it was a leap of faith and something very exhilarating and new, as I said, I was riding on the shoulders of other people who had done it, And the other aspect of it being, we have to get comfortable at being uncomfortable, right? So there's ways to practice just getting out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. And by doing that, you can put yourself in these situations and not feel overwhelmed. And I think I don't know, when I was talking with my friend Lauren, and I just know a lot of people sort of avoid these types of moments, just because, you're putting a lot on the line. There's a quote from Californication that goes, and I don't remember the exact moment it changed. I just know that it did. One moment I was impenetrable. Nothing could touch me. The next, my heart was somehow outside my chest. The next moment, my heart was somehow beating outside of my chest, exposed to the elements. And, a lot of things in life that you would want to attain, but especially creatively, that's what you do. You are exposing yourself to the elements. You are, by definition, you are not going to be able to be impenetrable. Or you are going to be impenetrable. Or I'm getting the two fixed up. I'm sorry. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. Meaning you are going to be exposed to risk and failure and all that stuff, and rejection and all kinds of other things. But it's in those moments where you feel the fullness, the full vitality that life has to offer. And I certainly did. And, there's another thing that I'll talk about that it's funny. I'm never one just for, I don't know why, like, I can't leave well enough alone type of thing almost, because I like almost stack the deck in an impossible way in terms of what I do, because there was another thing that I also kind of put on this weekend that was another sort of leap of faith, or stepping into something, and I'll talk about that a little bit, but not today, not right now. But needless to say, I did it with my first feature film where in order to film a party scene for the movie, I decided, all right, well, in order to get people to come out for the party as extras, I should just have a party of my own. So let me set it around my birthday because people will come for my birthday, and just to double down that they will come, why don't I also make it a book launch for my book? And that way it's like, oh, it's his birthday, but he also is releasing his book. Okay, so I have to go, right? And certainly, yes, that's a good way of thinking, but it's as chaotic as you might imagine it to be. And so certainly in that sense, like, this was such a, this weekend was full steam ahead into just madness. But I think that's the thing of, what I've learned in my life is you just take it a step at a time. And that's why, the old me, let's say, even just from a few years ago, would have just had so much nervous energy when the first person showed up on set, and I'd be like, hey, just do this, and that would have translated. Whereas I was, it was just honest about certain, there was definitely moments where I was working stuff in my mind, and I had to be like, hey, I could use your brains on this if you guys are willing to help me. And people were. So that's okay. I was honest about certain things, but at the same time, there was a sense of calmness, and it was just like, let's just figure this out. Let's just take a step back. Let's figure this out, and let's talk it through. And so, if you just if no matter with what you're faced with, you can just remain in that place of calmness, then you can overcome it. And it's not always going to go your way. The thing that I'm, not talking about today, it didn't go my way. But that doesn't mean it was a negative. And I'll talk about, I know that's the world's biggest tease, but I promise I'm going to talk about it in a future episode. I'm trying to, forgive me, this is all still very fresh, so a lot of it's still kind of forming in my mind of everything, how I feel about it. But one of the aspects that's interesting to me is I essentially got a lot of thank yous to my thank you. I mentioned that I got everyone gifts, and so people texted me and so forth of like, oh my God, this is so sweet, and thank you so much for doing this, and it was inspirational to see this come together and for me to be a part of it. And I gotta be honest, it's a weird, I don't know, I don't do good with compliments. I mean, I can be self-deprecating, and in that sense, like anyone who, like, it's really odd to me to think that anyone would want to be part of my projects without me pulling them into it, because in a large part that's been my experience with a lot of things that I have done in the past. And so for them to be eager to want to be a part of this because they see something, they think it's a worthwhile project, and they see me as someone that's worth taking a leap of faith on to, kind of mastermind this, if you will. I don't know. It's something that's weird to process, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just very interesting because I mean, it's like, well, I'm just me now. Who the fuck am I? I'm not. Which is ironic that I even, obviously, I do these things, and if meaning these episodes, and talk about all the things that worked in my life in hopes that someone does take benefit from it. But if I'm being truly honest, it really is just for me as a way to like collect my thoughts and kind of, like, this is my own version of journaling, and oftentimes I do revisit my own episodes for, maybe inspiration or whatever. So if nothing else, like, it is a selfish act on my part. So the fact that anyone benefits, it's still a little bit mind-boggling, but I think that's, if anything, that's what I'm supposed to be stepping more into. And I think that's a feeling that you perhaps relate, creative endeavors are not a selfish pursuit if you do it from the pure intention. And you don't have to have imposter syndrome. You do have to work hard at the craft and you have to respect it and be studying and so forth, but that doesn't mean you're not meant to do it. So just stick with it, you know. I mean, for me, the amount of time I mean, like as far as like just playing around with cameras and making movies, I've been doing it since I was 12. I didn't say they were good movies. Most of them are unwatchable, and I will never let people see those, you know. Most of them I don't even have, to be honest. Part of me wishes, you know, for posterity's sake that at least they were somewhere, but they're not. But that's what you got, you know. You just keep taking those shots, and you know, you might miss a lot more than you might make, but when you do succeed, it does feel good, you know. And for me, you know, one of the things I was talking with my friend John Comerford, we're talking about the script for this in general, the full feature script, and you know, we were just kind of reminiscing, and I was telling him with my first feature, Idol, you know, the goal was just to make the feature, and emulate my idols, but not in the sense of what, like Chris Nolan, let's say, is an idol of mine. But of course, I'm not going to be making Tenet, because who's going to give me money for Tenet? But instead, it was like, okay, what was his first movie? Can I get in that range? And you know, in my mind, I did. Now, as far as the quality of it and so forth and how it's received, that's up to other people. But I accomplished the goal that I set out to do. And so with this, you know, it's the next step. And like all my idols, their second feature film was a larger leap. And so that's what I'm now emulating, you know, and progressing in that way. Like I said, I'm riding on the shoulders of other people. I'm not doing anything new in that respect. So yeah, that's kind of the weekend. As far as what's next, the edit's gonna be very quick because you know, I know exactly kind of what we have. I know, you know, it was all pre-planned in terms of the shots and so forth, and we didn't get a lot of coverage because I knew I didn't need to. I knew what I wanted. We didn't get a lot of takes because, you know, I only needed 1 or 2 takes of the shots that I knew I needed. And so when we had it, it was like, why keep going? So my guess, you know, in terms of how I'm approaching it, by the end of this week, I will have the edit done. And this is, of course, the green screen edit. So that I can then send to sound design. I can send it for score. So essentially it'd be like, quote unquote, pick locked. But then the large chunk of it will be the visual effects. And so that aspect, you know, my intent is to have it by the end of February. But as all things go, you know, deadlines get pushed. And as long as we, and I mean the grand we, right, everyone involved is, you know, making progress, then I can't be upset if we miss a deadline. But if we're just sitting on something, then, you know, that's what gets me upset. And luckily that's never, you know, that's not the people I work with, which is why I'm grateful to be able to work with them. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of things. And yeah, I can't wait to update you in terms of how that's going. And if any of the actors from this weekend are listening, I know I've said it, but without being hyperbolic, thank you. And yeah, for you listening right now, I hope this does inspire you to take leaps of faith. It is scary as hell. And like I said, I mean, once you do it and then you have to kind of reacclimate to everyday life, it is pretty much worse than a hangover, but it does make you feel the full vitality of life, and that's a beautiful thing. So that's what I have for you this week. I hope you receive it in the spirit of that I'm intending. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, by all means, please ask. I hope, if nothing else, I've showcased that I'm very willing to have conversations and dialogue. So ask away, or, you know, just give me your thoughts, right? Whatever's on your mind. Thank you. I appreciate you. I hope to see you next time.